the first piece broke as we were, wrapping up our Cover 3 live show. All of the loyal viewers who jump in and hang out with us on Monday afternoons, 3 p.m. Eastern time at youtube.com/cover3. Our colleague Shahan had mentioned something a few hours before we started. He said, hey, Caleb Williams might be on the move, and if it happens, it's going to happen today, this afternoon. So shout out to Shahan for being on top of that, because as we were, hitting publish on the show, getting it out to you, the subscribers, we do start to get that trickle of information and eventually a statement from Caleb Williams that the Oklahoma quarterback has entered the transfer portal. That set off a series of events, which were all very interesting. Caleb Williams has said officially in his statement that he is entering the transfer portal and that he is, leaving Oklahoma as a potential place where he might go. We also get a weird official statement from athletic director Joe Castiglione at Oklahoma and Brent Venables saying that we encourage Caleb Williams to go out and see what's best for him. We understand the coaching change brings this about, and we hope that he will return to Oklahoma. This is totally aside, not an important part, but I have never seen a head coach and an athletic director release such a formal statement about a player entering the transfer portal. But that is the caliber of player that I think we're talking about in Caleb Williams, someone who enters the 2022 season, no matter where he is considered a top 3 quarterback in my book. And I think there's no argument that he is going to be a top 5 quarterback in the sport going into next year. So now we have this massive piece that is out there in the transfer portal. Reaction, other pieces of this, Dylan Gabriel flipped his commitment from UCLA to Oklahoma. So judge from that how you may. Thoughts about Caleb Williams being on the move in the quarterback shuffle? Who's in the mix? Predictions of how this goes? Sort of whatever's interesting to you at this point.
This is just a really interesting story from a lot of angles. From day one, Caleb Williams and his dad, Carl Williams, have had a plan to go 1-1. They want to be the first overall pick in the draft. That's been their messaging. I think that's why they picked Oklahoma, due to Lincoln Riley's, history of putting guys into the league at that spot. They didn't pick it for Norman, right, or for anybody else on the coaching staff. I think they picked it for Lincoln, and because of that. So I'm interested to see, does that message still drive where he goes? Obviously, the money you can make if you're the first overall pick is a hell of a lot more than if you're just a back half of the first round type pick. Does he go to USC? We obviously had heard that, and then that kind of got shut down a little bit. We'll see. Does he go to Georgia? We had heard that from Blake Brockermeyer of 24/7, but then Rusty Mansell, of our Georgia site, Dogs 247, said that he really hadn't been hearing that. And then yesterday, we actually heard there was some mutual interest from our Brandon Huffman at 24/7 Sports about Caleb and UCLA. So my question is, how do you balance, or do you have to balance chasing the bag? Because obviously now we have full-blown NIL and getting developed for the NFL. Can UCLA drop a big enough bag here once he gets on campus to satisfy both those things? Do you trust Chip Kelly to develop you? Georgia, obviously, I think NIL game is very strong, but also the quarterback development at Georgia so far under Kirby Smart has been poor at best, I would say, right? Like they misevaluated the Fields Fromm situation, and then it's hard to ding him for JT Daniels because he just can't stay healthy. But like they've not had elite quarterback play as of yet. He's a game changer, man. I think basically every school in the country but 2, Bama and Ohio State, should be after him. Well, I guess probably not Texas now they have Ewers, but that would be a messy situation to try to take that on. I have no idea where he's going. I'm just very fascinated to see how much of this NIL driven, how much of this is development driven, and do they have to balance those factors? Is there a place they can get both?
Well, that's the thing. Like you mentioned, they've long been interested in going 1-1. There's much more money available at 1-1, but maybe you get some more money in college for a couple years and then getting drafted 15th compared to first. The sting hurts a little less because, you made up for that deficit. I do think the most likely outcome here is still USC, though, because like you said, coming out of high school, the reason he went to Lincoln Riley is because Lincoln Riley sent, 3 quarterbacks to the NFL, 2 of them with the number 1 pick. He wants to be the number 1 pick. Lincoln Riley's now at USC. USC has a long history of developing quarterbacks, even without Lincoln Riley sending them to the NFL. It just makes too much sense. But the question will be, is there a mutual response? Maybe Lincoln Riley doesn't want to start his tenure in Southern California by bringing in a quarterback all the way from the East Coast, when USC's biggest problem the last few years has been letting Southern California quarterbacks leave the region. Maybe he feels like it's more important to get one of those guys to kind of set the tone there to keep those guys home. I don't know, but another trend to consider too. Like, I mean, we were joking about this in the group chat earlier this week, but we've seen it, and we've seen it a lot. Like, when it comes to transfers, there's certain threads. It's like connections with coaches at other schools, who recruited you or coached you before, or where does your girlfriend go to school? Because Adrian Martinez's girlfriend plays soccer at Kansas State. He transfers to Kansas State. Kadon Slovis's girlfriend plays soccer at Pitt. He transfers to Pitt. Caleb Williams' girlfriend, she's at North Carolina. Guess who's losing their quarterback to the NFL? Guess who has an opening? North Carolina. So that, I think, is in play as well.
I had a baseball coach give me some good advice one time. I said this in a group chat. Don't bring sand to the beach.
So Pete Thamel offered Pete Thamel had a phone call with Carl Williams, Caleb Williams' father. The family is on vacation right now, and according to the Thamel report, they are, quote, chuckling at all the rumors, which makes me think that Carl Williams has a 24/7 Sports VIP subscription, that he's all plugged in, and that he and his family are probably loving the fact that we're hearing USC, no, shoot that down. UGA, no, I'm not hearing that. Could be UCLA. Oh, what if it's North Carolina? When it's said that they're going to take their time with the decision, am I being naive for actually thinking that they might actually take their time with this decision?
What?
That they might consider, like, what is the urgency to get in for spring practice? I mean, get in by the end of January, right? I mean, Bud, you and I were talking about this yesterday. In order to get enrolled for classes, and I guess we could pull up the academic calendar of some of these schools, but like the add drop periods normally like 10 days after the start of the semester. I know USC does start a little bit later, so I guess you could say tick, tick, tick on whenever that is. But they can say they're taking their time with their decision, but there is some deadlines here if you want to be able to get in for spring at your new location.
There certainly are. And some school, keep in mind, by the way, some schools run on the quarter system. So you could also potentially get in for a spring game that is played in Q2 if you get in time for Q2. So it's going to really depend on the school. There are certain schools that I think you're probably going to be, if you decide to go to, you will not be able to participate in spring ball because you can't enroll for the spring. So that's going to be important to monitor.
Yeah, I don't think you're being naive in believing that they're serious about taking their time. It's just, if you think it's why they're going to be taking their time that maybe you're being naive about.
I will say, I think Oklahoma's out.
Just to run the price up, basically. Like they're taking their time in order to.
We're waiting for the best offer. We're going to wait as long as we possibly can and see what the best offer and best fit is.
That's what I would do.
Yeah, for sure. It's what you should be doing. So I don't think it's naive at all.
Which is also why anytime that there's rumors, they're being shut down because they're just still waiting for everybody to get their package together.
Get their ducks in a row. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, this is the Olympics. All right. And all these different countries are putting together their bids right now. They haven't finally been submitted. And just like the Olympics, we're expecting it to include just as much above board and below board offers as possible.
How many stadiums are you going to build for us?
For Caleb Williams, who knows? I guess like one last piece of this. We mentioned the NIL, and we mentioned going 1-1, the NFL draft, the NFL draft projections. I haven't heard yet us mention chance of winning a national championship, because to me, Georgia fits. If Caleb Williams shows up at Georgia, that becomes a team that automatically you start to talk about as a preseason national championship pick. You probably talk about Georgia as a preseason national championship pick no matter what happens with Caleb Williams' decision, just based on the fact of the talent-loaded roster and a team that is playing for the national championship this coming Monday. Do you think, and it's hard for us to know, I understand it's unfair for me to ask, but do you think that winning a national championship is going to be something that drives the decision-making of Caleb Williams here?
No.
I mean,
his dad is quoted as saying, "You go to college to prepare yourself for your career. Our
I wanted
chosen
you, yeah,
career,
I wanted to make sure that
Yeah.
we addressed that.
like
because
that's literally the quote. Our chosen career is to be the first pick in the NFL draft.
Well, I mean, another thing to consider is like it's not necessarily winning a national title, but the schools he's most likely to end up at are going to compete for national titles. Because if you do look in the college football playoff era, so since 2014, there have been what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There have been 8 drafts in the NFL. There have been quarterbacks selected with the first pick in 6 of them. Of those 6, the only one who went to a school at the time that was not a school that had been in the college football playoff was Jared Goff. Jameis Winston won a national title at Florida State and was in the playoff at Florida State. Baker Mayfield, Oklahoma in the playoff. Kyler Murray, Oklahoma in the playoff. Joe Burrow won a national title. Trevor Lawrence won a national title and was in the playoff. It helps. So I definitely think that's going to be a part of the consideration, but the actual, I don't think it's the top consideration. No.
I mean, get mad at me, Bruins, but I do think if if national championship matters, UCLA is probably out.
Yeah, probably.
I would agree.
Yeah, just the other pieces I don't think are quite there.
Although I think Caleb Williams really raises the floor of what UCLA could do. I don't think he's enough to make them a title contender.
No, but a thorn in the side of Lincoln Riley.
Mm-hmm.
Trying for USC, a team that I do think with Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley can be
pretty good.
A title contender? Are we going to do that?
Pac-12 contender for sure.
Oh, listen, I think that missing the playoff with Lincoln Riley year 1. God, this is too early for this. Missing the playoff year 1, Lincoln Riley is a disappointment. And losing the Pac-12 championship based on the Pac-12 as it is, year 1, Lincoln Riley, USC, I think is a big disappointment.
I will say that if I'm a USC fan, I would not have playoff in year 1 as my goal. Yeah, winning the division would be my first goal.
Winning the South, yeah. Playing competitive football. I mean, they're
a little far away still.
Very, very weird circumstances this year, obviously. But I mean, Tom, where did you have USC in your power ratings? Were they even top 40 at the end of the year?
No, God, no. They were probably about 48-ish. I don't have them in front of me, but they were in that closer to 50 than 40.
Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty big jump. Granted, you have to back out some of this stuff because there was motivation factors and injuries and other stuff, and they have a decent baseline of talent on that team at some spots. But hell, if you go to USC, if you're Caleb Williams, don't you have to worry about offensive line a little bit? Like those players that Lincoln Riley developed with Baker and Kyler and those guys, they had great offensive lines there at Oklahoma to play behind. And you're not going to have that, I don't believe, at USC.